Hello, everyone, and welcome to another podcast in Christ here at Enslow Park Presbyterian Church. I'm so looking forward for this day that we are, talking with people, and they will be sharing their life, what they do, and their testimony. The most important, their testimony with Jesus Christ. Today, we have this amazing presence here of my good friend Mitchell, and before we, talk deeply into his testimony, I would like to him to introduce himself, and we go from there. Good morning, Mitchell, my friend.
Good morning, my friend.
It is so good to be here with you one more time,
Thank you, likewise.
and this time doing this podcast. And that's the great thing because we've been, together in, some ministries here and there in town, and it's so good to talk to you. But tell our people, the listeners, who is Mitchell?
Okay. So, my name is Mitchell Webb, and I am the executive director at the Huntington City Mission. Have been for, in fact, this week is 10 years that I have officially been in that role.
Congratulations.
I've been in that. I'm married my wife of 45 years, Bonita.
All right.
And then we have two boys, two granddaughters, and we have been in ministry as long as we've been married. In fact, before we were married, we were in some ministries together. And so
Doing the same thing that you do at your job or different ministry?
different.
Okay.
Uh, we have been pastor of churches. We have led mission trips. And,
Nice.
children's ministries, and then the last 10 years, more specifically, involved in homeless ministries.
Oh, yes. And that's because of your work, right?
Yes, that's right.
Okay. And talk more about your past ministry with kids, the
Yeah.
importance of that. What was your role in that?
In that, a couple of times, early on in my 20s, I was a youth pastor.
Mm-hmm.
But later, after that, while I was sort of in between pastoring churches, we became a part of a church, Union Missionary Baptist Church in Chesapeake.
Okay.
And there was a void of youth workers there, and so my wife and myself and a couple of other couples
Mm-hmm.
really focused on trying to have a ministry for teenagers, especially, which our sons were teenagers at the time.
Ah,
Yeah,
that's
so
cool. That's cool.
yeah.
And what was the goal for this teenager?
Yeah,
It was like a for work camp or a youth. What was specifically?
if you want to boil it down to its most concentrated purpose, it would have been discipleship.
Oh,
But we
okay.
did regular Bible studies with them and some activities, and we actually did a mission trip to the Dominican Republic
Good.
with them, where we worked in a sugarcane village and built a swing set for kids while we were there. One of
Really?
my favorite things that I had done.
Okay, how many swing sets?
It was just one.
Just one?
Yeah. It was an experiment, but it worked out really well.
Great. And there was in Republican Dominican?
Yes.
Okay. How long did you stay there?
We were only there for a couple of weeks, but I've been there more than once.
Mm,
We were there, and then my wife and I have spent several weeks in Venezuela,
okay.
and that we thought at one point that was going to be our uh, mission field to go and live there,
Really
and
cool.
it's never the Lord wasn't in it, but the time that we had there
Hmm.
was tremendous, and it was really the Lord used it to help shape and mold who we are today.
Oh, absolutely. And I love these mission trips because especially if we go outside of US,
Yes.
so you see a completely
Yes.
different reality.
Right.
For example, we go to download sometimes in
Yeah.
1 hour south here, and people say here, oh, those are poor people. And I said, how they're poor? They have cars, they have cell phones, they,
Right.
and our poor, like in Brazil, I mean, we don't have even sewer on the
Yeah.
street, so
Right.
and it's eye-opening because we
Yes.
stop taking for granted the things that we have.
Yeah.
But about when you went to those field trips, did you take a youth with you, or
We
was
did on in the Dominican. And maybe I don't think we took any youth to Venezuela. That
Mm,
was not really a good place to take youth.
I see.
Um, but and then one of the original trips was to Uganda, and we had some teenagers
Really?
with us there.
That's awesome.
That just handled the thing very well. Yeah.
And then what church was that through?
Mhm.
What church is it? Was it non-denomination or
Uh,
Protestant or
most I think just every mission trip I did was actually when we had more of an association with the various Baptist
I
churches.
see. Very cool.
Yeah. However, my wife and I have been part of a non-denominational church for the last 15 years.
Cool.
And we did do a trip to Italy uh, and Germany since we've been there, but the rest of the trips, I think about 13 in total,
Uh-huh.
were at the when we were part of a Baptist church.
That's great.
Yeah.
And nowadays, what church do you attend?
Sanctuary of Grace is a non-denominational church in the Proctorville area.
Oh, I see. So do you live there in Ohio?
Yeah, so I live in Chesapeake, actually.
Chesapeake. Oh, okay.
Mhm,
Yeah. So
mhm,
makes sense. That's great. I love that. I love to listen these stories that people go out and then
mhm.
and my question is always whenever you bring kids, youth with
Yeah,
you, what is their, the conversation after what they
yeah,
saw?
right.
What do they share?
What I've noticed is that some of them will go and get nothing except for homesick, and so
Mm,
they long for the
after how many days?
but we, they long for the fast food and air
Mm.
conditioning. But for some, it changes their life.
Oh, absolutely.
And we've seen that, and with some, we've had people who have went into full time, became full time missionaries.
Uh-huh.
Some of them have become pastors, and so like with myself, those trips really helped. The Lord used those to help form me into what He wants me to be.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
And that's beautiful. So when did you receive the call? When did you start to go to church or when you
Yeah.
say, "Oh, that's what I want to do, help people."
When I was roughly 10 years old. I don't know exactly when it was, but my family was not in church.
Mm-hmm.
Mom and dad were good people, good, honest people, good moral people, as we say. And so I had a really good upbringing, but we weren't church people.
Mm-hmm.
And when we would go visit grandparents, we'd go to church with them, and then it got to where some of the neighbors were inviting me and my sister to go to church with them, and we would do that. And as I did, more that I did, I could feel what I didn't understand at the time was conviction, but I
Ah.
understand now that it was conviction, and the Lord was calling me to Himself. And so I would go, and there was a apostolic church that a neighbor would take us to, and and then there were some Baptist churches, and we'd see the different styles, but
Mm.
it all came down to the same thing. And the at the end, and that preacher was going to give that invitation, and I knew something was up, and I did not understand what it was.
Mm.
And then some of them said, if God speaks to you, raise your hand. And so I started raising my hand because it made me feel a little bit better. But still, I didn't do anything particular. But I went to Jefferson Avenue Baptist Church, which doesn't exist now.
Mm-hmm.
Pastor Paul Warren, who's well known especially in the Baptist circles here in town, was the pastor, and he taught this young boys class, which I was in, and he gave an invitation in the Sunday school, which was different. And again, I raised the hand, and then he threw us a curve and said, "Now, all of you that raised your hand, I want you to stay afterwards."
Mm.
And that's the first time anyone had taken the Bible and shown me what it means, how we receive Christ into our life. And so I wish I had written that date down, but I didn't. But I went there one time, and then the next week, the people came and talked to my parents about me getting baptized,
Mm-hmm.
and it kind of freaked them out. So I
Really?
didn't go back. But what happened was, my dad said later that he got under conviction because he said that it should have been him leading the family, and yet it was me. And so it wasn't long after that that our family, uh, mom and dad were saved, my sister was saved, and we, we started attending church regularly then. I know that I was 13 when that happened.
Yeah, that's my another question. So
Yeah,
you started 10 and then
yeah,
took
yeah.
3 years.
10 is a guess. It could have been 11
Okay.
or 12. I don't know exactly.
Okay.
But it's interesting that church, Jefferson Avenue Baptist. I
Hmm.
went there one time, sat in a Sunday school class, made a profession of faith, didn't go back. And, I've seen that over and over as a pastor. And you wonder, well, what happened to those kids or the
Mm.
adults? Well, fast forward about probably 40 years.
Wow.
And I know the pastor of that church, and he asked if I would come and fill in. So the second time I went to that church, I
Was to
was the
preach.
speaker. Yeah, right.
My goodness. And I love the story that you raise your hand,
Yeah,
twice. The first
right.
one, nobody noticed. And
Yeah.
and that was to be baptized.
That was actually to receive Christ, hear the plan of salvation, all of that.
Oh,
Yeah, right.
oh, okay.
Yeah,
That's interesting. I
right.
love that. And that would be every Sunday they would invite people to come there?
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
Pretty much Baptist.
exactly.
Okay, Baptist
Right,
church. I
exactly.
love that.
Yeah,
Very good. And then, okay, so that is your, youth and then how you receive
yeah,
Christ. And then you said fast forward at
yeah,
40 years you start.
right.
So have you ever preached before that moment? Or
Yes, when I was 19,
Mhm.
probably even 18, um, I I really was feeling the call of God for ministry.
Hmm.
Didn't really understand what that meant or what that looked like.
Uh-huh.
And I wrestled with that for a year or more. And when I was 19, I actually preached my first sermon. So that would have been in 1979.
Mm-hmm.
And but I preached for a year before I would say I was preaching. Yeah,
Really?
I was just teaching, is what I said. And I guess the semantics of that worked well for me, but there came a point where I'll never forget it. I was sitting in the pew of the church, and I think it was my dad was preaching at that
Mm.
point, and it could have been no more clear than if the Lord would have put His finger on my chest and basically said, "You know what you need to do. You need to
Really?
start preaching." And so I had submitted to that at that point,
Uh-huh.
and so I was 19. Uh, And within a month of that time, I started a job at State Electric Supply Company where I worked for 35 years.
Wow.
I married my wife, preached my first sermon, and had no idea at that time that those 6 weeks were going to be so pivotal in my life. And the rest is history.
My
We
goodness.
look back with learned a lot along the way,
Mm-hmm.
and just thankful for the path that the Lord has brought us down. Yeah.
You said something that really brought me a question here. You said that your family was not involved, your parents.
Right.
Your grandparents were, but your
Yes.
parents were not involved. And then your father saw this moment that I should be leading,
Yes.
not you. Now you mentioned this, just you said. Then it was in the church that my father was
Yes.
preaching. How?
Yeah.
Tell me this story.
So dad and mom, and I know when this was. It was in February of 1973
Mm.
when my dad, has tremendous work ethic,
Ah,
and when
what did he do? I'm sorry. What did he
he was
do?
a truck driver.
Truck driver. All
Yeah.
right.
And I think I've gotten my work ethic from him. But dad wouldn't miss work for anything.
Oh, really?
Would not. And I mean, his back was hurt, whatever. He went to work. And so uh, one Sunday morning, we got up and dad said, we should go to church. And so we did that 3 Sundays in a row.
Mm.
And at the third Sunday, we were at a little church called the Bride of Christ United Baptist Church. We're at the mouth of Buffalo Creek. And the next morning, dad couldn't go to work. He was just he just stayed in bed. He couldn't get up.
Really?
And sometime that week, in the truck, in the cab of a semi,
Mm.
uh, Dad gave his heart to the Lord Jesus. And
Love that.
it wasn't long after that, probably 2 years, that he started preaching. And wasn't long after that he started pastoring.
I love this because anywhere
Yeah,
God's is present anywhere, and
that's right.
during the work or in your lonely time,
Yeah,
God's calling you.
that's right.
I love it.
That's right.
So how long did he stay out of the house, like a driving, and how long
Oh, he
did
was in he worked long hours, but he was home every night.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
what
so he
local
was,
here.
yes, he was local. Right, right,
Okay, not like a long journeys,
right,
weeks. Okay,
right.
it's funny because there is a house here on the Eighth Avenue, and you know, sometimes I see a big truck there.
Yeah,
So daddy's home.
exactly.
And
Right.
then sometimes this truck is out,
Yeah,
so probably, and he spent like days,
yes, right.
So it was different. That's great. I'm glad that your father, and how was the reception when he share with you this moment that he had?
Later in life, he did.
Oh,
It
okay.
was as he grew in Christ and himself, then I think he was able to articulate what was actually happening to him.
Mm,
And so, yeah, it's pretty spectacular, really. And Dad's 85. He's still preaching. And
really?
yeah, right.
I'd like to invite that man here one day. I like to hear his story. And then now think about this here. So today, for example, as we have the GPS and we go to places that we don't know,
Right.
we just set the GPS there. Oh, it's a straight line for 50 miles, and that gives you a time to think about your life or
It
think of
does.
problems or solutions.
Right.
Imagine that time we didn't have the GPS.
Yeah.
He had a map or he knew by heart everything.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
So, and even though in that moment God talked to him, so
Right.
that you saw in the map that's like a 20 miles, man.
Yeah.
Let me talk to you. I love this. I
Right.
love it. Is there anything that you like to share with us? A special. That's always I ask people to bring something or a passage in the Bible that this moment in their life, talks highly
Yeah.
about their situation or
Yeah.
things that they went through. So what did you bring to us today?
There are so many things as I thought about that we could have done. The Psalms have become very more precious and real to me, as I get older, and especially when COVID came. We got really philosophical there, and I found myself in the Psalms a lot. But what I would rather do is look at in the book of Philippians,
Mm.
chapter 3, and verse 10 especially. The whole first part of that chapter is tremendous, but let me read it for you. And I'm using the Christian Standard Bible,
Oh, okay.
but it says in Philippians 3:10, Paul says, "My goal is to know him and the power of his resurrection and the fellowship of his sufferings, being conformed to his death, assuming that I will somehow reach the resurrection from among the dead."
Hmm.
And I love that because uh, Paul says, "My goal is to know him." Well, Paul's already been in several years of ministry, and he was in prison for Christ when he wrote this. So it's obvious that he knew the Lord.
Hmm.
So what was it he was saying here? And if you dig into the original language, into the Greek, what Paul was saying here is, I don't want to just have a head knowledge of the Lord. I don't want to just know about him, but I want to have an experiential knowledge with him.
Mm.
He is, I think it was, oh shoot, Francis Schaeffer, who said that he is real and he is not silent.
Mm.
And Paul was saying, with all that he had done, uh, he was willing to trade all of those things
Mm.
just to have an experiential knowledge with the Lord. And then not only that, but to know the power of his resurrection, which I want to know that, but
Yes.
then the fellowship of sufferings. Paul was basically saying, I want to know what it's like to suffer with him.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not quite there yet. That's what he was saying. And assuming, being conformed to his death. I want to die for him. I want to be willing to, if I had to die the same way he did, I want to do that, Paul was saying.
Mm-hmm.
Assuming that I will somehow reach the resurrection from among the dead. So Paul seemed to be saying, my goal in life is to, by experience, to know Jesus. And that at some point, because of that, uh, that I'll be raised from the dead just like he was.
Well, and it's so powerful. And the thing is, to a few words that always bring to my mind. For example, to suffering. What is to suffer like Christ,
Yeah.
and and how to live with that. So, for example, your trips to
Yeah.
abroad.
Mhm.
Uh, did you what you saw? Did you
Yeah.
suffer?
There was a certain amount of that. And I was never physically persecuted. So I want to say that right up front.
Yes.
But when I went to Africa in 1990, um, we went to Uganda,
Hmm.
a little village called Kakombo, and it was way out in the bush. And we were there in the rainy season.
Oh.
We were in tents there, and every night you would get downpours of rain. So much so that in the morning we'd have the awnings, the tent would be full of water, and we would dish it out and use that to
Oh,
wash
nice.
from and shave from. But every night, uh, God dealt with my heart there. And again, like so many things, I didn't really understand exactly where that was going. But he used what I saw there and experienced there uh, to get my attention, to show me that there's more to life than just making money,
Mm,
or more to life than just going to work and paying bills.
yes.
There is a abundant living, and we don't have to wait till we die and go to heaven. Thank God for that.
Mm,
We don't have to wait for that. We can live abundantly. We can do it now. And wouldn't it be good if that's what we did?
yes.
Wouldn't it be good if we had an experience with the Lord? How that, and in that, I'm not sure that I would have ever went to the Huntington City Mission had I not went on that trip to Africa.
That's a very good point.
Yeah, because again, it changed it like the wind changes the sails of the boat. That trip changed the course of my life. And I was never the same after that. I always tell people Africa messed me up really good. And you know, I was director of marketing at State Electric Supply Company, and I had a great job. I had the best job in the company,
Really.
and loved being there. There's it's still family to me
Uh-huh.
over there. Um, but man, there was a longing inside that was not being met.
Hmm.
And so the question about the time I turned 50 was, okay, what are you going to do with the rest of your life? If you stay
Is the mid
here,
is the mid life crisis? Like,
I was sort,
yeah.
except I didn't get the blonde and the red convertible.
But you got a bonita.
I did.
Yeah.
When you got a bonita, you don't need the blonde.
Exactly.
So it was, well, what are you going to do with the rest of your life? If you stay here the rest of your life and sell electrical supplies, that's fine. There's nothing. That's an honorable business.
Hmm.
But is that really all that there is? And so I think that began a quest right there for finding, Lord, where is it that you want me? We tried to go to Venezuela. We thought we were going to be full-time missionaries there.
Mm-hmm.
And we loved our time there, but the Lord just, that wasn't it. And
Okay.
then so the opening came up at the mission, and as soon as I heard about it, you could have knocked me over with a feather.
Really.
And I told my wife, as soon as I heard about it, I said, I don't understand this, but I think I'm going to be doing that job. I don't even know what it is,
Mm.
but I think that's what I'm going to be doing. And man, it was no time. I was director of marketing. We would lead customer loyalty trip. So we got to go to some pretty nice places.
Yes.
And because we were leading it, you were treated like you were somebody, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And we were in a next to the top floor suite in the Atlantis Resort, looking out over the ocean when the offer came across email for the mission. And it's important to marry well. My wife said, we can live on that. We've lived on worse. We can do it. I know we can. And so within a month, I went from being in a suite in the Atlantis Resort to in a meeting talking about how do we get rid of these bed bugs.
And instead of dealing with CEOs, with drug addiction,
Yeah, that's right.
and yes, oh my. Now, and that's the great thing that you mentioned here about this passage, Philippians 3 verse 10, and also the other meaning of suffering. Some people
Yeah,
always, I mean, I think most of people, when you bring the word suffering,
yeah,
it's a physical suffering,
yeah,
and of course not. You can see a situation and you can suffer with that
yeah.
person.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, so the thing is, when you took that job,
Hmm.
you left from,
Hmm.
5 stars places to a city mission that Lord put you there.
Yeah.
And the great thing is, it was supposed to be,
Yes, that's
because
right.
if you apply and everything goes smooth, God is leading you this way.
Right.
If there is a no or
Yeah,
a rejection, God say that's not the right place.
that's right.
But the way that you're saying, and with the approval of your wife said, let's do it. I love that. You are now suffering, not physically, but suffering with the life of the other. So could you share, what is this kind of suffering that
Yeah.
you.
That's the that's really tough, and it hit me in more ways than I ever expected that it
Mm,
would. I'll give you just a couple of
sure.
examples. Let me give you a couple of tough examples, and then I'll give you a joyous one. Okay.
Yes.
So I had been at the mission for probably not a year yet, and we had a man that was staying there who, over the Thanksgiving holiday, he he got somehow he got some bad drugs or something,
Mm,
and he overdosed and died. And so, and I didn't even know him. I don't think I'd ever met him. But I got a call from his mother, and when they tell you, hey, that fellow that passed away, his mom's on the line, you know what to expect. Is she
yeah.
going to blame you? Is she going to, you know, I don't know what I would do if it were me. And but it was direct opposite. She said, I want to thank you for taking care of my son.
Mm,
And he fought this battle for a long time. And she said, would you get his things together?
mm,
I want to say they lived in Michigan. I don't remember exactly where it was. But would you get his things together, and we want to come in town and get his things?
mm.
So they gathered his things together, and all this man had, all he had in the world, filled up about half of one of those big black trash bags.
Really.
And so they filled that, put that stuff in there, took a piece of duct tape and put it on it and wrote his name on it and set it in my office. And so for probably 2 weeks, I would look over in that corner and think, that is the culmination of that man's life.
Hmm.
That's it. And that one worked on me for a while,
Yeah.
you know. So another time, a bad day, uh, we had a lady who had two teenage kids, really nice kids, and she had been seeing a guy who was, well, he was, I won't go into detail, but he was a bad character.
Okay.
And CPS, Children's Protective Services,
Oh.
kept telling this woman, you've got to stop seeing him, or we're going to take those kids. And she persisted and kept on and kept on. And so one day we come in there, and there's these two teenage kids, a boy and a girl, huddled up together, crying. while uh, the state basically came in and took those kids. And by the way, they were probably right in doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but man, you know, you talk about vicarious suffering, through someone else. I just could not imagine what that was like for the kids or for that mother. I just could not imagine what it was like. And man, that was such a tough day. And then I had an employee who came later that day and closed the door and told me, he said, I know that was tough.
Mm-hmm.
But he said, in my childhood, when I grew up, there were times when I prayed that someone would come and take me and my sister.
Yes.
And so it's, man, what are you supposed to do with all of this?
Exactly. It's a broken world.
It is truly a broken world.
And if you read the Bible, something that was written before Jesus, like 4,000 years ago,
Yeah,
never change it.
that's exactly right.
So
Right.
now imagine the Son of God, Father, the Son,
Yes.
Father, God the Son, God the Father, God the Son. He came here to this world, and because God is love and compassion, and
Yeah.
Jesus likewise, so he sees everything,
Yeah.
his brothers and sisters living the way. It broke his heart.
I think so too. And,
That suffering that he felt, I think, was way worse than that day when he went to Calvary.
I think you're right.
Because I maybe that moment that he was going to the Calvary, often beaten, and
Yeah.
crucified, that's a hope in going there
Yeah, that's
for
right.
a
That's right.
resurrection,
Right.
But in that time of his ministry where he
Mhm.
walked and see everything
Yeah.
that's going on,
Yeah.
he broke his heart.
Yeah. I mean, you think about him weeping at
Yeah.
Lazarus' grave.
That's a great
He,
point.
he knows what he's going to do.
Mm.
He knows Lazarus is getting ready to come out of that tomb, but the brokenness and the sorrow, the pain in his, in shoot, Martha and Mary,
Yes.
moved him to tears.
Hmm.
So
And and those are very and probably there's a story that you told with the kids. I think what shocks more is the kid, suffering from
yeah,
the action deeds of parents. Now, you said that there were two stories, and you
yeah.
want a good one.
So here's a good one. And this is one of my favorite days at the mission. So I had banged around on the guitar all
Or
my life.
I want to hear that.
Well, you probably don't because I've heard you play. But so I've always had a desire and a love for that, and it's sort of like therapy to me. I take
Mm,
lessons even now,
good.
and I tell my guitar teacher that it's $25 for half an hour is cheap for therapy as it's done. So I was walking in the alley at the mission, and there was some guys standing in the alley, like there always is. And there was one who was standing and he had a guitar case in front of him. So I walked up to him and just started a conversation. Hey man, how you doing? And tell me
Mm,
about your guitar. And so we were talking, but he was not really connecting. He was obviously depressed about something. He was hurt about something. And I said, what's going on with you? And he said, well, I just found out uh, that my mother died.
oh, mm,
And he said, the truth is, this world would be a better place if I wasn't even in it.
really?
So I said, well, I don't know about that. And tried to encourage him. I took him over. And he sat with our chaplain, Chad Hatfield.
Mm,
And Chad spent the afternoon with him, really encouraged him. And so a day or two went by. And the person running the men's department called me and said, do you have your guitar over there? I said, I do. Well, the guy, I can't remember his name, he's over here playing. He wants to know if you want to come and play.
yeah.
I said, sure. So I grabbed my guitar and went over there. And I found out right away, number one, this guy was really good.
Oh, really?
He had made his living busking, as they say, and playing on sidewalk for donations.
I see.
He was singing and he was playing and it was good. And I swear this is true. Right beside of me was a guy with one leg in a wheelchair. And all of a sudden, man, he produces a guitar. I don't know where it came from. I don't know. It was almost like a pulling a derringer out of your boot. You know? And the three of us are playing, and people are just having fun around us. And so they looked at me and they said, "Well, why don't you play one?" So you would think the pastor here would play Old Rugged Cross or
Yeah,
something like that,
yeah.
but I couldn't think of anything like that. So I said, "Well, how about that old Merle Haggard song, Mama Tried?"
Uh,
So we started to play that. And when it got to the verse, I turned 21 in prison, doing life without parole. When it got to that verse, I looked around and there were employees, there were homeless men, there were people who were there from other agencies. And for a few minutes, we were just all in unity,
I love it.
singing Merle Haggard songs as loud as we could sing them. And I thought, man, I don't know if we're going to sing Merle Haggard songs in heaven, but this must be something like what heaven's going to be like, because just for a few
Yeah.
minutes, the stigma was gone. You're
Mm.
not homeless, addict, thief, whatever. Uh, just for a few minutes, we were all on that same level. And that was one of my favorite days I've
I
had
love
at the
it.
mission. Yeah, that was so good.
Oh, just tells us the power of the music, you
It's the
can
truth.
bring. And one thing that I learned is the music is the only language that everybody
Yeah,
understand.
I think you're right.
So wherever you go, if you play Bach, if you play Beethoven, you play
Right.
rock and roll,
Yeah.
uh,
Or Merle Haggard.
or Motorhead, whatever, people
Yeah.
will feel the beat, people will feel the
Yeah.
connection, and just like for example the Christian music, it's interesting to say, oh, if I bring the Christian music, some people don't know, others do, but if you bring the word of Jesus in any
Yeah.
language, there is a meaning, a powerful meaning that,
Right.
and the music, it changes the atmosphere, and I love that.
Yeah, me too.
So, how often do you do? So this guy, he's no longer
No,
living
he's
there.
not there. I don't know where he ever went to, but he was there for probably another month or so after that. And
Mm.
uh, as far as I know, he's still around somewhere. I just don't know where.
Oh, I
Yeah.
see.
We have a lot of transient people
Mm-hmm.
who they're there for a few weeks and then you never see them again. And then there are those also that are more chronically homeless who we see on a regular basis.
Oh, I see.
But uh, yeah, but I don't know what happened. I've often wondered about it.
Mm. And I know that you all City Mission offers daily meals, right?
Yes, we do.
And that's for anyone or just those who lives in.
That's anybody who shows up and is hungry.
Okay.
Uh,
What time are the meals?
Oh gosh, they are at is it 7? I think 8 o'clock for breakfast. Uh, we start at 11 with lunch because we're serving so many meals and our dining hall's not big enough, so we eat in shifts.
Ah, I see.
So the women and the families eat at 11. The men come in at 11:30, and then in the evening it's 4 and 4:30.
Oh.
And so before COVID, we served in 2019. We served, I think it was 116,000 meals, and we thought, man, that is crazy. How are we going to do this? But every year since COVID, it has grown dramatically.
Mm,
And 2 years ago, we broke into 200,000 for the first time.
real.
Last year, we did 274,000 meals. So, but they're free of charge.
Uh-huh.
About 65% of the meals we serve are for the community and not for people living at the mission. And
Yes.
we're okay with that because, for one thing, that's the only way some of those people are going to eat. And for another thing is some of the people that come are people who used to be at the mission,
Mm.
but now they've got a job, they've got an apartment, whatever. But they still have trouble making ends meet. There's a whole lot more working poor than I think our people realize. And with inflation and everything, there's going to be a whole lot more of them. But if they can come and bring their kids and eat a couple of nights a week, and maybe it helps them buy the kid a new pair of shoes or helps pay
Mm.
the electric bill or something like that. So
And another thing is, I know that the city mission also has a chapel there, and you mentioned about the chaplain.
yeah.
That's interesting. So there is someone that leads worship there, or is
Mm.
just a spiritual guidance. How does that work?
I would call it more of a spiritual guidance. We
Mm,
actually have two chaplains. We have a men's chaplain and a women's chaplain.
great.
And about 9 years ago, we realized that here we were in the heart of the opioid epidemic.
Yeah.
A lot of recovery programs around, a lot of good ones, by the way. Uh, but here we were claiming to have the answers to the problems of life, and we
Mm.
didn't offer anything for someone who wanted a Christ centered approach to recovery. And so we started that. We call it the Transformers Recovery Program.
Mm,
And we have based out of Romans 12.
nice.
And we have, I think currently we have 10 people in it. And I don't think it's ever going to be a huge, 100 people in it or whatever. That's really not what we're shooting for.
Hmm.
We just want to be able to offer something for people who are looking for a Christ-centered approach to recovery. So that's the basis of what we do in the chapel.
Mm,
It's biblically based. There's three biblical uh, lessons per day,
wow.
with an eye towards people who have some form of addiction that they need help with.
That's great. So every day changes the scriptures. So you have
Yes.
okay,
Mhm.
like the lectionary.
Yes.
Okay, that's great. And these are before or after the meals? You said it 3 times a day.
There is really not associated with the meals.
Oh,
So
okay.
there's a class at 9, one at 2, and one at 6.
Hmm.
And
And it's in the chapel, right?
in the chapel, yeah.
Okay.
And no one is required to go.
Mm-hmm.
It's entirely voluntary. And it's primarily for our transformers, but anybody that wants to come and sit in on the classes can.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. Mitchell, um, how can people help the city mission? I think that's important. Maybe people got emotion with the stories and want to
Yeah.
help. So what are the ways that they can help?
Well, the first thing we can do is there is a there is a problem uh, with the perception of homelessness
Mm,
in our area, but in society as a whole. And we tend to lump everyone who is experiencing homelessness into the same category. They will work, they're all on drugs, it's this or it's that. And anytime we overgeneralize a population, we're
mm.
making mistakes.
Yes.
So the first thing that would be great is to enlighten yourself about who it is that's homeless.
Mm,
We would invite you to come and serve a meal at the mission
that's great.
and see who's
Yeah,
there.
absolutely.
So Monday morning we had approximately very close to 200 people that woke up at the mission.
Mm,
19 of those were children. People don't think about children. We have
yeah.
whole families
Mm,
that are homeless. And with, what safety net programs that there are, it seems like some of those are being reduced. So if you have a person on disability, they're probably getting about less than $1,000 a month from what is it, SSI or whatever it is. And if you look at the price of groceries, the price of gas,
yeah.
the price of rent, I think we're going to see more and more of our local working poor who are going to end up homeless.
Mm.
I don't think there's any way that we can avoid it at the rate that we're going.
So most of the people that serve food that you're saying, are they employees of City Mission or just volunteers?
We have employees that do that, but we are open to volunteers to do that as well. And I would encourage people to start there. And once you do that and you get an idea of who is there, you may see other areas that you can might want to join in and do.
Mm-hmm.
You might even get creative and come up with an idea. We've had people who worked at banks that came and did a basic, like how to balance your checkbook and
Oh.
that sort of thing. And our folks, as a general rule, have very, very few of those life skills.
Mm-hmm.
Some do, but as a general rule, they're really lacking there. And what a tremendous blessing it is for them to learn basic things like that.
Yeah.
How to go to the grocery store and buy a healthy food
Mm.
and not break the bank when you do it. So
Yes.
there's some basic things like
Temptations.
that.
Date temptations.
Just think about everybody's basic problems of life.
Mhm.
And then if you are really good at one of those, there are probably people at the Huntington City Mission that could use your expertise.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So is there a way that you apply or just show up there and
Yeah, you need to apply,
mhm.
maybe even a strong word. We just got to get you on the schedule.
I see.
We don't want 10 people showing up at the same time to serve a meal or to do something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And but yeah, just call the mission and ask for the PR person. Currently, the one we have now is in the process of leaving, so I don't even have a name to give you, but we'll have one soon. And so that's the best thing to do.
And everything's you guys have a website, right?
Yes, we do.
Okay. So what's the website or Facebook or what? All social media.
Sure. Actually, we're very strong on Facebook.
Great.
So we have a website as well.
Could you share? Do you remember?
Right.
Well, I'll do this here. I'll put in the description of this video, the website,
Yeah,
Facebook.
great.
But do you have Instagram or is just Facebook page?
We do have Instagram. I don't think we do much with it, though, to tell you the truth.
Okay, but I mean, even though I'll put it there.
Great.
The X, you have the X or the old tweet?
No, we do not.
Okay.
Yeah, we haven't figured that one out yet.
Yeah, well, that would be a nice other opportunity to
Yeah.
share the things, So, yeah, let me know. I'll go.
Okay.
I'll search,
Okay.
and then
I think it's hcmwv.org, but I would need to get on here and make sure.
that's okay. Yeah, I'll do this. I'll put the links in the description of the
Okay.
video.
Perfect.
Anything else we'd like to share with us in terms of?
No, we just
City.
appreciate you and the work that you and your family are doing. And, I want to say too that it seems like that we've had a lot of criticism here in the last year or so because of the growing number of homeless in our area. And I would just say that blaming the mission for that is like blaming fires on the fact that you got a new fire department over here.
That's right.
But having said all of that, we appreciate all the support that the Huntington area gives us because we could not do it without that.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, and probably not only our church, but many other churches
Yeah.
support City Mission.
Yes.
And I know that,
Yeah.
and that's great. And we've been part of some activities there, and I'm looking forward to go back there with
Yeah,
some
great.
folk.
Love to have it.
Yeah, especially this opportunity to serve meals. You just guys show up
Yeah.
there, get the glove. Do you put those nets in the head too?
Right.
Yeah, see, it's
Right.
fancy, just
You don't have to
and
cook.
talk
That's it.
and talk with people there.
We overthink it. It's that simple.
And we know that just a small talk with people would change their day.
Yeah. If you look someone in the eye who's used to being nothing but shunned in the public, if you look them in the eye and actually shake their hand
Yeah.
and try to remember their name and call them by it, that goes so far.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it changes
It
everything.
does. Yeah. Jesus, before he healed the leper, he touched him. That was a taboo. You didn't do that.
That's true. Yes.
It's hard to tell how long it had been since that man had experienced human touch. But Jesus touched him.
Yeah.
And, it's,
Even though the guy warned him and the disciples,
yes.
Lord,
Yeah.
that's that, and he come and touched him and healed him.
Yes.
So with a touch, imagine with kind words. You
Yeah.
change the word.
Exactly.
You change the word for the person. Mitchell, it was a great time that we shared here. I
Thank you.
love it.
Thank you.
All the stories and especially the Bible passage is so encouraging us to live a life like Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
and of course it's empowering, and the Lord is inviting you to join this feast of abundance that just Mitchell told us here. So I'm looking forward to see you guys around, and stay tuned in our website, Facebook page, YouTube, and if you like this conversation we had here with our friend Mitchell, please share with others, and stay tuned. Looking forward to see you again at the next podcast in Christ. Mitchell, thank you so much.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate you.
All right.